I've never seen anything like this before.
Hello and happy 4th, Jimmy from Jimmy's World. We're gonna look at fireworks from the top down instead of like you lesser beings looking at it from the ground up. So we're gonna go check it out. I got a couple of friends with me. What's up, Paul?
Yes.
What's up? What's up, Mark? You guys ready to do this?
This was one of the most memorable night flights of my life. The ground looks like it's sparkling everywhere, all over the city. We got to see Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Sarasota, Brandon, Zephyrhills, all of it at the same time. As we found a big show in Brandon, I went to circle around it, and I had practiced, and we have to pass these specific tests going around a fixed object at a certain altitude.
Keep a constant line of sight down your wing to the pylon. As you fly that semicircular pattern, your wingtip should make this smooth semicircular pattern around the pylon.
And I was flying a little higher than those tests are, just for safety reason. However, I realized those are really difficult to do in real life.
This is a really good shot.
And the benefits and drawbacks of having a high wing versus a low wing when it comes to photography. If we had a high wing, a Cessna 172 or something like that, a 206 or 210, this would have been no problem because we could have just not had the wings in the way and would have got all the pictures we needed. However, with a low wing, keeping that on target, like the C-130, the AC-130, the gunship version, where they have that big cannon that goes out and fires, that's the specific maneuver that they do. They have to be at a certain speed and a certain altitude at a certain bank angle to hold that gun on target as they go around it in a full 360-degree turn. It is really difficult to master that. And I know I was way too high for the speed I was going. At this speed, I would have had to have been doing, 150, 160 knots or something like that to keep that bank angle and keep everything the same. So I realized that. However, far and away, this was the best night flight. It was magical. It reminds me of when you're out camping and you stare into the fire and you can just stare into it and it's somehow hypnotizing. You spend an hour or 2 hours just staring into the fire and you don't even have to say anything. You could be all by yourself or with a group of people or anything. It is mystical, magical, and hypnotizing. If you've never done it, I would highly, highly, highly recommend on next 4th of July or New Year's, whenever there's big fireworks displays, go up in your airplane, get a couple of friends, and fly around and watch this from the sky. It will give you a different perspective on life. Hit that like, please subscribe. It helps this channel and it pays for some of the gas money to do videos like this and other fun things that we've got coming up. I've got lots and lots of videos in the works right now and projects, so we'll keep them rolling as we continue to gain some infamy here. I appreciate you guys. My name is Jimmy. This is Jimmy's World. And I'll leave you with a little music so you can enjoy the view that we had.
When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal stations to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, would dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariable the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having a direct object: the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. And to prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. This king has refused to assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He's refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations thither, and raising the conditions of new appropriation of lands. He's effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He's combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from a punishment of any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off all of our trade with parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without consent, for depriving us, in many cases, of the benefit of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for inducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of government. He has plundered our seas, he has ravaged our coasts, he has burnt our towns, and he has destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun, with the circumstances of cruelty unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has incited treasonable insurrections in our fellow subjects, with the allurements of forfeiture and confiscation of our property. He has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation thither. This warfare, the opprobrium of infidel powers, is the warfare of a Christian king of Great Britain, determined to keep an open market where men should be bought and sold. He has prostituted his negative for suppressing every legislative attempt to prohibit or restrain this commerce. And that this assemblage of horrors might want no fact of distinguished dye, he is now exciting those very people to rise in arms among us and to purchase that liberty of which he has deprived them by murdering the people upon whom he has also obtruded them, thus paying off former crimes committed against the liberties of one people with crimes in which he urges them to commit against the lives of another. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in most humble terms, and our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a man to be free. Future ages will scarcely believe the hardiness of one man. We have not been wanting in our attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of the attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We've appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. We have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which they would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence, but they too have been deaf to the voice of justice. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies and of right ought to be free and independent states, and that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish Congress, and do all other acts and things which independent states may right to do. And for support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.